Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I am here for Create a Smile stamps. I am very excited to announce that I am joining the Create a Smile stamps video team, and so I will be sharing videos featuring Create a Smile stamps here on my YouTube channel and over on their blog, so you can check out the link in the video description below to head on over to their blog and see the full post. For today's card, I thought it would be fun to mix a lot of different products from Create a Smile. As many of you know, I've been a huge fan of theirs for a long time, and I've shared cards on my channel featuring their products. And so for today, I'm going to mix up their stencils, their dies, and their stamps. I'm a huge fan of stencils, and I'm always trying to think of some fun, different ways to use them. So for today's card, I have used sprays and ink over my stencils. I've used chalk markers with stencils. I've used embossing paste, a variety of things. But something that I've never used with my stencils was distress stain. So I just kind of wanted to see how it would go. And I kind of knew that with the distress stain, if I released too much of the stain, it might leak under the under the stencil. And so I knew that I'd have to be careful and not add too much ink. And so when you use the distress stains, it has a dabber top, and when you depress or push down on the dabber top, or dauber top might be, there's a little button inside that gets pushed down and releases the ink. And so you want to be careful not to always push it down all the way, or to push it down more gently so that you don't release as much ink. And once you do have some ink on the paper, though, you can use this swiping motion to spread it around, and that creates a really unique look. It doesn't look quite like adding the ink with a spray, or with ink. And that's, kind of the purpose here, is to create something that's a little bit more unique looking. So you can see these swipe marks and the dab marks, and it just makes for an interesting background. If you didn't have distress stains or something similar, I do think that you could get a somewhat similar look with watercolors. And so if you were to use watercolors and you want to get your brush a little bit wet but not too wet, so that you're using some pretty dry watercolors, you could get something similar. I'm working on plain cardstock, but you could try it with watercolor cardstock. I think that actually might not work as well, though, because the watercolor paper would absorb more, and you might not see as much of the stencil design. So I'm recommending regular cardstock for this particular technique. Now I am trying to emphasize the speech bubbles in the background by going in with a similarly colored pen. So I used Evergreen Bow, which is a pretty green sort of teal, like a green-blue mix, but heavier on the green, for the background. And now I'm using a teal pen from Lay Pen. It doesn't really matter what kind of pen you use, except for that if you're going to add any additional wet medium, you would want to use a waterproof pen. At this point, I didn't intend to add anything else wet, so I wasn't worried about whether my pen was waterproof. And you can see that sort of emphasizes those speech bubbles. I am looking to create a background more than a focal point with these sentiments. So I don't want to draw your attention to just one of the hoorays. I want it to sort of fade into the background, and I'm going to add a focal point later with some stamps. So I decided to keep them solid white to match in the background, and I cut a few of them out. These are the tiny sentiments. There are a lot of great small sentiments included in one die set, and they're relatively small, so they're perfect for card making. And the stencil that I used is the Say It stencil. So I'm going to put the 3 hoorays in 3 of the speech bubbles, and you see that they are sort of hanging over the sides at the top and bottom. And I will just turn it over and trim those off after I've adhered it. I find that to be a little bit easier than cutting it ahead of time. Since they are such small, intricate die cuts, I am choosing to use Multimedia Matte from Ranger to glue them down. I know some people have had success with the Stick It adhesive, but I find the Multimedia Matte works really well, especially with that fine tip, and it's a little bit cheaper overall. Once I had those down, I decided to add in my focal point, and it's going to be this radio stamp from the Perfect Tune stamp set. And I'm stamping it on the background because when I fussy cut it out later, you will still want those little black feet of the radio in, and I don't want to have to fussy cut them out. And it also helps me to know where I want to place everything else as I continue to create this background. So because today is my first video with Create a Smile, I decided to create a card that sort of fit in with just how excited and happy I was to join the team, since it is a company that I've been such a big fan of for so long and have been sharing projects and videos with their products anyway, so to be offered a chance to work with them is just awesome. And so I'm sort of having that hooray good news theme with my good news of joining the team today. And I'm stamping that good news with the same color of distress ink as I used in the distress stain. So I want it to be not too obvious, like I don't want those good news sentiments to take over the card, just like I didn't want the hoorays. What I really want to draw your attention to is the radio. And so I decided to use an orange. Orange and blue are sort of opposite on the color wheel, and so they really pop against each other. And at first I thought that I would color it with Copic markers, but I was finding that because there's so many black lines on this stamp set, I was getting a lot of smearing with the ink. And I could have let the ink dry and it wouldn't have been a problem, because if you use a Copic friendly ink like Memento or My Favorite Things Black Licorice Hybrid, it will work. You just have to make sure it's dry. But I was just trying to be quick, and so I gave up on the Copic coloring and decided to just take a orange distress ink and swipe it across a scrap piece of cardstock and then stamp the radio over it. And that would allow me to color much faster, because once it was swiped down, it was pretty much good to go. So I stamped over it with the VersaFine to get a really crisp black impression, and then I'm coming in with distress marker. Because I've been using a couple different distress products anyway, I thought it'd be better to kind of just stay in the palette because the distress colors work so well together. And I'm just coloring a few of the details. I obviously can't get the same blending that I would with using Copic markers, but by using two colors of distress markers in orange, I am able to get just a little bit of shading in there. Once I had that completed, I decided that I wanted to create a matte between this background panel and the card base, because I was going to use a white card base. So I decided to back it with some black, and then I just trimmed that up with my Swingline guillotine trimmer, and that is it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are interested in more crafting tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and also to the Create a Smile video channel as well. I'll leave you links in the video description below to the products that I use, to the Create a Smile blog and YouTube channel, so that you can check them out. And thanks for watching. Bye!